I have personal power. I am in control of my emotions and my being. My personal power allows me to overcome every challenge. I maintain my personal power in the face of challenges and retain my right to self-autonomy. My personal power has boundaries that enable me to be all I can be and for others around me to do the same. This is Dr. Anita with another diamond moment. Becoming is a process, and that process has stages. Diamonds are produced through time, heat, and pressure. It's what we do with the experiences of our lives that allow us to utilize what could have pulled us down to be the stepping stones of what we use to climb to our highest and our best. We've been talking about deconstructing to reconstruct, taking apart where we have been in order to reach the destination that we want to go on. It is a necessary step in any development that we want to make in life. The deconstruction phase of becoming at the onset is very frightening. Who will you be if you're no longer who you consider yourself to be today? I remember when I was going through this process in my own life, I felt like a snail outside of its shell. I felt so completely vulnerable that I had no protection around me because what had previously been protection was no longer working for me. I couldn't make myself small in order to remain in a place, in a life, in a position that no longer fit me. And in order for me to be all that I could be, I had to release, I had to relinquish where I was. I had to deconstruct the person that I thought I was, which actually took place in that enormous paradigm shift that I went through. And I had to be still and quiet enough to reconstruct who I was at this point in my life. When we are reevaluating our beliefs, we have to look at ourselves, not anybody else. I think one of the most profound parts of the becoming process is learning to look at yourself. Get your eyes off of the other guy and just look at you. The one thing you have to do at this stage is to become a little bit selfish and consider no one else but yourself. If you've been living in the shadow of everyone and everything, it's time to consider moving out of that shadow and into your own personal light. There'll be time later on to consider everyone else. But for right now, you must stop and think about yourself. This is a point where being able to get quiet and sit down alone comes into play. So this would be the spot or the place to meditate. Think on the things that you want, not on the things that you don't want. You know, I use scripture a lot. Why do I do that? Because billions of people are familiar with this terminology. No matter how you've grown in your spiritual life or in your belief system, there are some areas of truth that are just truth. We have so much more in common with those around us than some religions want us to know. Truth is truth, no matter who said it. And so when I utilize scripture, I am speaking from a place that many, many people will be able to resonate from. I want you to take some time, some quiet time, and think about what makes you feel good. If you remember the movie The Secret, if you haven't seen that because maybe your spiritual belief system did not subscribe to the understanding that the way that you think brings about the life that you're living. But if you have seen that movie, then I want you to think about what makes you feel good. Take some time and think on what makes you feel good. If you're looking at it from a spiritual reference, it's whatsoever things are good or lovely of a good report. If there's virtue or kindness in it, think on those things. So what makes you feel good is the direction that you're trying to move towards. When we think back on our formative years, when we think back on our school years, the worst thing in the world that you could be was an individual. That person who was considered a dork or who was nerdy or who liked what other people didn't like were the ones that were picked on. And because of that, we trained ourselves to be just like everybody else, to be a cookie cutter image of everyone and everything. We had to wear the same clothing. We had to have the same hairstyle. We had to look a particular way. We had to talk a particular way in order to be accepted. But now in life, we have to go back and deconstruct that cookie cutter image of ourselves in order to find out who we truly are. Who are we now that we are adults, or as we're heading into becoming an adult? And if you're listening to this from a different perspective, we have to look at becoming an individual through the lens of love. What we want to do is to be able to declare our independence, but we need to do that from a position of love. That's what keeps us safe. Again, scripture says, beloved, let's love one another, because everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. He who does not love does not know God, because God is love. So when we are declaring, when we're who we are today, when we're deconstructing in order to reconstruct, when we're reconnecting to ourselves, we need to do that in a position, in a place of love. Love for yourself, love for people who may not look like you, sound like you, or live near you. But we want to look at things from the position of love. We want to be individuals, as we've said before, who are the change that we want to see in this life. We need to be that person in the spirit and coming from the concept of love. We want to give ourselves permission to love others, not be fearful, but to love others. If you remove everything that does not leave you joyful, what is going to be left, and what parts of yourself do you hold on to? The answer simply is you hold on to those parts of yourself that relate to love of self and others. I want you to move your thoughts to what you would want if whatever your personal block was removed, whatever that thing is, whether it's money, whether it's age, whether it's gender, whether it's your culture, whatever that might be. If you remove that personal block from your life, who would you be? Sometimes we have made God so small that we're unable to see ourselves as we truly are. As we have come to change so much of our authentic self, what would it take to move us back to a point of giving ourselves permission to just dream again? So I've got some homework for you, and that is for the remainder of this week. I want you to put front and center in your life, just feeling good. I want you to just feel good. If you get a call from someone that you know drains your energy, send it to voicemail. Allow yourself to build yourself up before you return the call if you have to do so this week. And go back and think about who you are, what your dream is, who you want to be before you go back and talk with them. Now, I'm not saying don't speak with them at all. You can go back and talk with them when you're at a higher point in your process. But initially, don't allow anything to sap the good and positive thoughts that you're having. Allow yourself the opportunity to become accustomed to less stress and more positivity. And I know for some, this is a groundbreaking idea. You don't have to live in someone else's stress. You don't have to live in someone else's negativity. You have the ability within your own life as you stand up in your own individuality and independence and determine what you want in your life. This will allow you to relearn internally when something or someone is moving you away from your new center of joy and peace and towards their center, which you are attempting to become independent from. What do you mean by that, Dr. Anita? What I'm saying is you got to take a break away from negative people to reestablish the positivity, the individuality, and the independence of your own life in order to recognize when you have moved away from that place of positivity, of joy, and of love. When you are responding to negative people, you will become negative. As we said in The Secret, what you think about, you'll bring about. What you are focused on will become the center of your life. And if you are focused on negative people, you run the risk of becoming negative. You run the risk of negating the positivity that you have begun to feel in your life and to revert back to what they think, who they are, and who you determined that you no longer wanted to be. You have to look within. You have to be connected to that inner voice in order to determine when something is moving you away from the center of your life. We're establishing a new normal. And in order to do that, we have to put ourselves in a place where we're able to focus on our own thoughts, our own being, and determine what we want. We have to learn how to dream again. So what if the person who's negative is your family member? What if that person is your husband? What if it's your wife? What if it's your mother or father? Maybe it's your brother. Maybe it's your sister. Maybe it's a cousin or another relative. What if it's your children? What if it is your employer, your neighbor, your roommate, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, a religious leader, a political leader? Whoever that person may be, we have to make a decision on how we want to live our lives. Well, the way you're putting that to me, Dr. Anita, do you mean that I've got to leave my whole family? Not necessarily, but you do have to go through that phase of declaring your independence. What if it's your husband or your wife? They're allowed to be different from you. You're allowed to be around people who think differently from you and maintain your own beliefs. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's some conversations that we have in relationships where we learn to agree to disagree. Relationships require compromise, but it's not necessary to compromise yourself to the point of extinction. You have the right to have an opinion as well. You have a right to be heard as well. I know that the podcast is heard all over the world. And many times, the people who are listening in, I thank you so much for being with me and for allowing me to speak into your life. And there are some cultures in which maybe your gender determines that you have no rights or privileges. Well, you do within your own self. And you are able to navigate that system to become all that you want to be. But you have to first get to the place of understanding that your inner man, that part of you that is compelling you to continue coming back to this podcast, to continue listening, to continue on YouTube, walking this life out with me, that you will get to the place that you need to be in order to effectively live your own life. I've said this and I will continue to say, you don't owe anybody your happiness. You don't owe anybody your life. You have been given that individual aspect of life for yourself. It wasn't given to you to never accomplish what you were positioned on this earth to do. Your life was given to you for you to live it. I mentioned that sometimes it's our children, and I'm not meaning small babies. I'm meaning that many times we are allowing those that we have given birth to determine how high we can go or what we can do. And I want us again to reevaluate our relationships, even with our children, and to declare outwardly who it is that we are and who we have determined to be. As we close out today, I want you to remember this. I won't just think it. I'll be it. Again, thank you so much for being with me. Thank you for spending this time. I really appreciate every listen. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to the platform from which you're getting this information, whether it's YouTube, if it is a podcast platform that you're listening to me on. Please visit the website at www.DrAnitaMc.com. That's DrAnitaMc.com. Join me on NoomVibe. Also, join me on FanBase. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you'd like, you can leave a comment. Please give me a thumbs up. Please share. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe.